gotta tell you about making that picture.
Your Photoshop skills.
So when I took it here, like when I got home to actually like really do it, I'm sitting here, I'm just chuckling to myself about the whole thing, and because I've got our picture pulled up and I'm trying to figure out how to best edit my face in, and I get it in and I have to like cut to make sure it like doesn't look super shitty. And I'm just zoomed in at 300%. It's our faces, like nose is practically touching. Britta just comes walking in, looks at the screen. I'm like,
It's the cover of our gay porn that we're making.
Like if a 15-year-old me could just look into the future for one moment and catch that and just be like, what the fuck is he doing? And then today, I didn't know when I saved it to my computer, I saved it to my folder that I have for my background images that constantly switch. So I plug it into my monitor and it's just right up in front of me. Oh man, this thing's everywhere.
What a great photo.
I'm so proud of that one.
After you sent it to me, I showed it to Leo. I was like, do you remember when Chase sent this before we got married? And he's just like, don't ever forget or something like that. And I said, by the way, your hand is podcast famous now. And she's like, what did she say? She's like, do I get copyright on this? And I was like, only your gray fingernails.
What's going on, shitters? Welcome back to Nerd Shit in the Dark podcast. I'm your host, Chase the Chaz Skripek, and today you are all here for a very new yet different type of podcast. What we're doing here today is based on Braden the Brad Neilster. He is a busy beaver, and we had to make the manga chapters for Nerd Shit in the Dark become a monthly chapter release. And I'm just always getting content, and much like Toei Animation, I'm like, we gotta make stuff for these people. So I thought,
keep creating. We gotta keep creating.
Yes, we gotta give them some shit. And I just thought, why not do some filler episodes in the meantime while Braden's writing the manga? And so, welcome to the first ever Nerd Shit in the Dark, the Good Filler Arc podcast. And with me here today is a shitter himself, but also an old friend of the show, Caton Wiesner.
What's going on, everybody?
Say hello.
Nice to be back. Excited to be back again for this little good filler arc, because we all know there's a lot of bad filler arcs out there. But we're gonna do our damnedest to make this not a bad filler arc.
I'm gonna be like, that show had some really good filler, is what people are gonna say.
Like, that was worth the time for the 30-minute episodes. Or 2 hours.
That filler could be as good, if not better, than some of the main episodes.
That could be its own story, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we have big plans. So the difference between this podcast and the usual podcast is we'll do typically the same thing where we've discussed doing new nerd shit, and then after new nerd shit, we're gonna do a deep dive into something nerd culture that we decided to dig into in the month in between episodes. In today's episode, we are talking about Ahsoka,
we've got
so
lots
excited
to talk about in the Ahsoka world. A lot of good conversation off the new Star Wars media.
I'm so excited to get to that point, just because I'm excited. I feel like I've shared with you a lot of my thoughts, but I'm excited to hear a lot of yours. And I didn't think there was a better way.
I've got notes. I don't usually take notes while consuming media, but I felt like I should be ready to speak intelligently about this series, so I took some notes. Dude. And I got some thoughts. And I think the kicker is that they're not all good thoughts. I've got a mixed bag of ideas and thoughts on what I witnessed. So
I think I'm really interested to hear your negative thoughts, because like I personally don't have many. I can agree with people, so I can be like, okay, yeah. But for me, things didn't really bug me. But
yeah.
I'm interested.
I think, to be fair, I think my bad thoughts are, they're not really bad. I think that they're just slights on an otherwise good packaged product, I guess. So
okay.
We'll see how it goes. We'll see. I'm not going in negative. I'm
excited to tell you this perspective that I came up with for the show. I was going to text you had you not watched it, but you had started it, so I decided to save it. But
perfect.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's all I wanted to do to address the beginning of the show. Other than that, I mean,
welcome
we can
to the good filler arc. Let's talk some nerd shit.
Yeah, I think since this is your first time being a co-host. I mean, you've been a guest, but now you're a co-host. So I want you to start with your new nerd shit.
Yeah, I would love to talk about this. I've actually thought about this a little bit because of it's very on par. So I've got two things I want to talk about for new nerd shit. one I'm going to hit real quickly here because I know personally you are a fan of Metroidvania-style side-scrollers with some danger attached to them, right?
I have been playing some of those.
I know you were a Celeste guy. I think that you might have done Hollow Knight. I can't remember.
Yep.
Have you heard of Blasphemous?
I have not heard of Blasphemous.
Okay. So I found this game about 2 weeks ago. I was recommended it on YouTube as a recommendation to check out from a speedrunner I follow. It was specifically Blasphemous 2. But what it is it's a Metroidvania-style side-scroller, kind of 2D in the same form as, Celeste, Hollow Knight. Trying to think of some of the other ones that I'm aware of. Ori. Yeah. It's a little less crisp in an art style as Ori, but it goes more into like the 2D pixel art a little bit more. Okay. But it's still the same general idea. You're in a big map, and you play as the penitent one, and he is a silent knight in a world where a miracle went wrong. And it's very like religious nightmare kind of. So it's a little bit of horror themes as well. Kind of got that Dark Souls-esque kind of vibe about it, where you're in this pre-medieval kind of twisted monsters are, people that are being tortured. I guess it would be even more akin to Bloodborne than it would Dark Souls, but same idea.
Right, yeah.
And so I downloaded Blasphemous 1. What's really cool is there's actually a Steam demo, so you can play up to the first boss. You don't have to pay for it, so you can see if you like it, which is really cool. But it's challenging, it's platformy, it's jump right, dodge left, You make a mistake, you're going back to your last save point, you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
If you would incorporate this as one of those every time I die, do 10 push-ups, you'll be jacked by the end of the night kind of deals.
I've never thought of that. I should probably start doing that.
I had a buddy back in college who always told me that when Dark Souls 1 came out, he always did the 10 push-up. He did the 10 push-up per death thing, and he told me by the end of the night, he couldn't lift his arms because he was dying so freaking.
Hey, I feel like your buddy was Dwayne The Rock fucking Johnson.
Yeah, he was a skinny little guy too. Give him props in the world. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up because I think that not only is it something that I'm sure is on brand for your audience because it is a...
Pause. I don't know what just happened, but I just started getting a fuck ton of interference.
Anyway, all I was saying was it is, I think it's on brand for your audience because it's a pretty easy to play video game, but it's very difficult at the same time. And I knew that you personally were into that style of games.
I'm playing one right now.
I think you can get it on Switch, but I'm not 100% on that. I know for a fact, obviously, it could be played on a Steam Deck. And like I said, I started with Blasphemous 1. I did Google it because I was like, well, everybody releases a 2. Do I have to play 1? People said that 1's actually better than 2. It's well worth playing 1 first. So I think it was like $25.
I was going to say how much, but 25's not. I think that's a reasonable price for any game that's like a Metroidvania, especially.
Yeah, it's an indie game. I mean, it's got a good following, but yeah, I mean, it's very Celeste, it's very Hollow Knight, it's very Ori kind of style. So I'd say give it a check. I think it's a really fun one. I think I played in total about 6 hours of it. Died plenty of times in that 6 hours. It has not been great. But I killed the first boss, and I've been having fun. So highly recommend that as my new nerd shit for your show 1.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is a little bit... I could probably talk for hours on this one.
Okay.
I won't.
But take as much time as you need.
Lord of the Rings Online.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen you playing that on Steam.
I have played that game since 2011. Off and on.
Okay.
I have played it forever. In fact, I actually played the beta before it was released full time. So much like MMOs, they never let you go. You only take extended pauses. And Lord of the Rings Online's got me again. It is, it's an MMO, right? It's World of Warcraft. It's Final Fantasy Online. It's the same idea. You pick a race, you pick a character. You pick a class, you pick a crafting guild, all the same. You do missions throughout Middle-earth, but that is why it's incredible. If you're a Tolkien lover, like I think the majority of us are, you get into this world and it's so expansive. I mean, the way they do their level scaling is as you kind of progress through the Fellowship and you're kind of doing things parallel to what's happening in, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So one of the first big epic quests is meeting Strider at the Prancing Pony and Bree. You're not necessarily interacting with the Fellowship so much, but you're doing things for the Fellowship.
So it's all happening throughout the course of the books?
As you level up, you're progressing through their story all the way to Mordor, which I think the level cap right now is 140, much like in World of Warcraft, where they review, they release expansions, which increase the level cap and increase more questing. Same concept here. You can, and what's cool is you can play for free, much like World of Warcraft, up to like level 30, I think it is, before you have to start buying or paying for a monthly subscription. But it's incredible. You pick a race, you start in a race homeworld. So like if you pick a human or a man, race of man, you end up starting in Bree. If you pick, a dwarf, you start playing in Eredun, which is over by Thorin's Hall.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick a hobbit, you obviously start in the Shire. Depending on which type of hobbit you pick, you could start in different parts of the Shire, whether you're starting in Michael Delving or Hobbiton or whatever. So, but then like from there, your class is obviously, again, if you played World of Warcraft, you played this game. It's just being in the world of Lord of the Rings is so cool because you're going to experience these places that you've seen on movies. Like you get to level 25, and one of the things you need to do is you got to go explore Weathertop before Strider takes the hobbits to Weathertop to make sure that it's free of enemies. And it ends up being an instance where they might have, a ring wraith waiting for you because they're already in the area.
I didn't know it followed the movies. Like the storyline at least.
So I don't know how World of Warcraft is. Maybe you can clarify this, but there's always you have a million side quests, but there is an epic quest line that kind of goes through.
Right. Yeah. Each expansion gets a new main storyline. Yeah.
So the epic quest line that you end up following is kind of that. You're following the different aspects of what happens. In fact, my main character that I'm playing right now, level 45. 55. And I had just watched the Fellowship depart Rivendell. And it's one of my jobs was to secure the fact that they're able to leave at night.
Jeez.
Nobody will interact with them, and then I say goodbye to them all. They're like, okay, we're going on. Well, guess what? The next quest that I got to do, I got to go meet them in Moria. Now, I think that starts at 65, so I have a little bit of time. There's a lot of side quests I'll do between this epic quest and the next one. I think I closed out book 1 and moving on to book 2 in Moria. But yeah, I mean, there's Isengard. You move into Rohan after Moria, after Lothlorien. And then as you expand and you make it to, once you get to Rohan, they introduce war steeds as the next big thing because, the horse people, they're fighting on horseback now. Then you move your way over, you have to do out Helm's Deep. Then you move forward and you keep going and you meet then you're having fights in Pelennor Fields as you go to Minas Tirith and all this.
I had no idea that this was what this game was.
And then what they do after that is after you finish the book of the Third Age, being you defeat Sauron and you help Frodo, what they've started doing now for the higher tier stuff, like level 120, level 130, is you actually go do other things in the world of Lord of Tolkien's world. So next you're going to the Misty Mountains to take on Smaug at level 130 or 140. Then what their new thing they're doing now is the Corsairs of Umbar, which is where the ships came to try and help Sauron on Pelennor Fields, but Aragorn made it there first, and with the Ghost Army.
Right,
so there's all of that stuff in the southeastern corridor of Middle Earth where you're going to go fight the Umbar at that point. So
my God.
It's incredible and it's expansive. There's worlds that have been referenced that you've probably never seen because they were never in a movie, but there's you go up to Agmar, you see where the Witch King of Agmar existed. Things level 40 and 50. You go to North Downs where there's rangers that you have to help Strider in adjacent. So it's just really cool because you're in the world of Lord of the Rings as opposed to WoW, which is great, right? I'm not talking about it, but it doesn't have as much kinship to you actively being able to go into the Prancing Pony and meet with Strider.
Right.
It's really cool. Or going to the summer festival in the Shire because that's a summer event for them, and celebrating with the hobbits and doing goofy things and winning cosmetic items, given to you by a bunch of hobbits.
That does sound awesome. I can't believe I haven't looked into this game more to know basically any of this. I just assumed this whole time that it was just you're in Middle Earth and it's an RPG, an MMORPG. Right. I didn't know. You're at level 50 something and you're just leaving Rivendell?
Yeah.
That's a big fucking game then.
It's massive. And I won't say I think it's priced the same way that WoW's priced. So once you get to level 30, you've got two options. You can buy individual land packs, which allow you to play a region-specific set.
Mm-hmm.
And then that can That's cheaper because you're just buying one region. You can play up to the end of that region, or you can pay monthly where you just have everything unlocked and you can just play as you want. I did a little bit of mix of both, so like I didn't know how long I'd be playing, so I just bought a region pack. I did a bunch of quests in there. I took a huge break. I took like a 3-year break. Then I came back because I was like, I want to play again. I just picked up a 2-month subscription off of Steam, so now I can do whatever I want. And if I lose interest, whatever, my membership doesn't continue. It's fine. Or if I want to keep playing because I've got the MMO bug, I'll keep paying for subscription. So
how much is a subscription?
I think it was like $30 for 3 months, so not bad.
Oh, well, you get $10 a month.
Yeah, I think you get a discount if you buy it in chunks like I did. That's why I said it the way I did. But yeah, it's fun, man. Like I have so much
really fun.
And then like the classes are fun because, obviously you can pick the things you expect to pick. You can pick elves, dwarves. Some of the new characters are like the Boring, which are the men that turn into bears. You see some of that in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
There's some stout dwarves, which are slightly different than normal dwarves. They fight with their fists, not axes, so they end up being brawlers more than normal dwarves.
That sounds fun.
So those are all like different types, but then you can pick like a class on top of that. So you've got ranger class, or hunter class, which is like a ranger with bows and arrows. You've got lore masters that summon animals and fight by your side. My main character is a warden right now who uses like quick kind of physical attacks that you build up in a gambit builder, and then like you unleash them all at one time and do a crap ton of damage. So it's cool. And there's also like instants and raids where you can meet up with other people if you want to be in a fellowship and take on big bosses. Like, get 6 level 30 guys together and you can go do this instance. Now, I don't really play that way. I'm a pretty solo human.
Yeah.
It's all there. Like if you want that raid boss stuff from World of Warcraft, that's there if you want it. And like I said, it goes up to level 440. It'll expand to 150 when Corsairs of Umbar comes out, I think, at the end of this year. So they're still developing. They're still expanding.
I don't think I knew that the game was still... Like, I saw you were playing it, but I didn't know they kept... A lot of these MMORPG... I just looked into Final Fantasy 14 and I was like, oh, this is still... They're all just still going.
They still got people. And I think the big thing, too, is when I originally started playing Lord of the Rings Online, it was a standalone client game. But I think as of 4 years ago, it's now Steam embedded. So it's a Steam game now.
Right, because I think that's where I had seen that you were playing. It was on Steam.
So I think a normal account's allowed to have 4 characters on it. And then a premium account, which is just somebody who pays per month, can have up to 6 characters on your account.
Yeah.
So you can be running multiple things. My big strategy is I've got 4 characters, mostly just for crafting needs. So, like, one of my characters is this crafter, one of my characters is this crafter. I use my main account to mail them ingredients so they can keep building new stuff. Wow. And then I send it back to my main character, like, this guy's a metalsmith, this guy's a tailor.
That is a fun way to not make any friends on the game.
I don't want to have to talk to people online.
I feel the same way.
Talk to people
I feel
online,
the same way, dude.
So that being said, it's a lot of fun. I have been spending a lot of time. In fact, sometimes you feel guilty about playing MMOs because you know that there is no end in sight and there's probably a million other games you could be experiencing.
Yeah.
And it's always that like double-edged sword of like, I'm really enjoying this, but I'm also just dumping time into something with no real end in sight. Yeah. As opposed to like Blasphemous that I'm playing now, which will have an end boss at some point.
I think that's where I struggle with games a lot too. Even like Baldur's Gate has an ending, but it's such a big fucking game that I had to like... I'm currently taking a break because I want to play other games, but I put 85 hours into it, and I still wasn't close. How much time am I going to
devote to this thing that at the end of the day may take me another 150 hours? Like, I have no idea.
So that's become one that I'm going to poke at every once in a while. I have another quest that I'm doing for multiplayer with Braden and Jared, so I'm just like, I'll play Baldur's Gate when it's time to play Baldur's Gate. I got too many other games I want to play. Spider-Man comes out in 2 weeks.
I almost have to, like, as an adult, make a schedule to tell myself that on Tuesdays I can play Lord of the Rings, but on Wednesdays you got to get back to your single-player games.
Yeah.
You can't just throw time into... It's super enjoyable. I'm not even talking bad about it. There's just so many other things building up in the backlog that you're like, I'm never going to get to this until I die. Like, it's just not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the things I want to talk about. Blasphemous, highly recommend if you're into that Metroidvania style, and then if you're just really, really interested in going to see Middle-earth for yourself, and you've got a propensity for MMOs.
Ah, Jesus.
It's a good time.
I'm addicted to video games right now. Like, seriously, something hit me in the past, like, year and a half where, like, I because you know me, I've always played, but I hadn't been playing as much as I had, and then it's just been back in full force. So, like, I'm in the middle of one game, and I'm like, oh, I gotta play this whole series, and I'm like planning to play all these games, and
that's the
worst.
A
fucking nightmare. Oh yeah, and I'm playing Final Fantasy, so right now I'm playing 2 Final Fantasy games at once, and it's it's tough.
I almost feel that way to a slighter extent with the realization that I'm enjoying Blasphemous, because it's like, okay, well, that's Blasphemous 1. Maybe if I beat that in 30 hours, I can go to Blasphemous 2.
Yeah.
Okay, but now I'm really starting to get into Metroidvania games, so I gotta play Ori, I gotta play Hollow Knight. And it's just like,
and Hollow Knight's humongous.
End?
Like, Ori's big, but like I think I beat it in like a reasonable like 15 hour. Like, I need more games like that, because every game I pick up, it's
small
like
chunks under 20
30
hours
to 100 hours to fucking beat. And Hollow Knight is humongous.
I still have things like Red Dead Redemption 2 in my backlog. I've still got the Mass Effect trilogy in my backlog. Like, these games that are going to take hundreds of hours that are, I think, arguably some of the highest rated storyline-based video games ever created. But you literally know that you're
sitting down for a while.
Devoting chunks of your life to these things while more stuff piles up. And
I wake up at 5 in the morning to play video games. That's what I do.
Part of me still wants to go back and play. I'm pointing to my PS4 off screen here.
Okay.
Part of me wants to go back and play New Game Plus of Ragnarok, because I really loved that game when it came out. And it's still on my backlog. Like, I'd love to go back and play New Game.
I've never even played that one.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I've heard good things. Yeah, I haven't finished the first one.
I love those games. I love MMOs for that reason. But, we're adults and we've got things to do. And sometimes it's like, how do I prioritize this nonsense? On the bright side, we are moving up into cold season. Less outdoors, less movement, more video game time. So it's a trade-off.
That's what I love about my job, is like, it certainly gives me time to play my games that I have on my Switch, my phone, and my Steam Deck. But there's a lot of games on my PlayStation that's like, okay, I gotta sit down. I bought the fucking PlayStation Portal. I don't know if you saw the
I have not. No.
It's the new. It's meant to be like an addition to the PS5. It's a streaming device, and it's like a Switch, but with
okay.
And you use it. It's like a Switch with the PlayStation 5 controllers, and it syncs up with your PlayStation, so you can play what's it called, like cloud gaming on it.
Oh, okay.
It's made just for that.
Good? Is it good? Like, does it do its job well?
From what it's not out yet, but people that played it seem like you can turn your PlayStation on from, like, as long as you're somewhere with internet, like, you can get on your PlayStation and play your games. And the people that played it said it worked pretty well. It comes out in November, so I think that's going to really help me play more PlayStation games.
There you go.
Not that I don't love sitting in front of this to play it, but, like, dude, if I can sit on my couch.
Yeah, but when you're doing your job and you have downtime and you don't have a PS5 in front of you, it seems like a pretty decent stopgap for that.
Especially, like, with a fucking kid on the way. Like, something like a portable PlayStation come in handy. So
you're going to click it on, click it off whenever you got free time,
I'm looking forward to that. But have you met Tom Bombadil? Is he in there?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's actually a companion during some of the early quest lines, because he lives right outside of Bree in what's called the Barrow Downs, in a forest. And as you're
so cool, you go to his house.
Is when you go to his house and you he helps you take on some reanimated, kind of from the necromancer perspective. He helps you fight some skeletons in some borrowed down grave tombs. But what's cool is when you're in the proximity of Tom Bombadil, you get a hope mechanic, because he like shines eternal as an everlasting being.
Yeah.
So you have +5 hope when you're near him, which is wild, because it increases your attack like 150%, because he's just like the embodiment of good.
Yeah. Whatever he is, honestly.
Whatever he is, right? I think it said he's the oldest being in Middle Earth or something like that.
Plays with the ring in the first book. He just
diddles it. Not to keep going down the Lord of the Rings thing, but I also decided to find a podcast that I could listen to that would teach me everything I never wanted to read, like the Silmarillion and Children of Huron.
Yeah.
So I found this podcast called Lord of the Rings Lorecast. It's still going. It's 75 episodes right now, but it really is breaking down everything that's happened, like since the start of Tolkien's world with the Valar and Ilúvatar the god, it's bringing the Valar to life. The Maiar, the first elves, Valinor, the fall of Morgoth.
I gotta check that out.
It's really good. It's they're 30-minute episodes.
What's
it's
it
run
called
by
again?
a company, Lord of the Rings Lorecast.
Lorecast.
Lorec,
Yeah.
Run by a company called Robot Radio. I think he makes a bunch of Lorecasts. I think he does a Fallout Lorecast, a Mass Effect Lorecast. Yeah, it's really good too. Just to add on to the Lord of the Rings stuff, because he hits on things like Tom Bombadil or the birth of Galadriel over in Valinor, because she saw the trees before they were destroyed by Ungoliath, the mother of Shelob, and all that. Like, there's so much going on in that, and
that's a cool way to take in that content.
I tried to read the Silmarillion a few times, and it failed. The names get me, the complexity gets me. I almost feel like a child trying to read a history textbook.
Dude,
sometimes.
It's the Bible of Middle Earth.
It's so bad, in my opinion. I know it's godsend, but I can't do it personally.
Yeah.
But it's super consumable when a guy makes a story out of it and tells you the story of it and chunks it up per episode. So
I'm gonna have to check
I'm
that
only
out.
in the middle of the first stage. I think I'm on episode 26 or something like that.
How long's an episode?
I think they're between 30 and 45 minutes, but he usually does about a 10-minute like interval in the middle where he just thanks Patreons for signing up. So like you can skip through that. So they're shorter than that. I usually do about 2 per run if I go on a run. So it's a really cool way to consume Lord of the Rings history that I never would have consumed otherwise.
Dude, when I'm driving to my stops, like I've gotten to a point where I've heard my music so much that I need to listen to like something else.
It would be a good story to listen to.
That's
because
a cool podcast to put in.
Yeah. So I highly recommend checking out. It's on all the platforms. I listen to it on Spotify. Again, that's actually what encouraged me to get back into my MMO Lord of the Rings Online phase, because I've been listening to so much Lord of the Rings. I was like, I want to go check out these places.
I want to be Lord of the Rings.
I want to be Lord of the Rings. I want to go meet Celebrimbor in Rivendell or whatever it is. You know?
What did you say your character was? What race? I think you said it. But
so I have a dwarf. I've got a couple of characters. I've got 2 dwarves. I've got a man, race of men, and then I've got an elf. I've always been a big fan of dwarves. I just like their stories. So most of my main characters are dwarves.
I felt like the dwarf was a pretty, when you said dwarf, I was like, that seems fitting,
Yeah, I love the dwarves.
You have the personality of a dwarf.
I like to be underground. I'm in a basement. You know how it is? Like, I just spend most of my life underground.
I do love a good basement. That's awesome.
Yes, so I will cap off my new nerd shit.
That's
with
fair.
those.
You came in very strong.
I even threw in the third one, even threw in the Lorecast.
That's
look
beautiful.
Into the Lorecast.
For your first episode, you brought in a few episodes worth of new nerd shit, which is great.
I had to build up the backlog, and then I'll come on once in a while.
I don't have a whole lot to say about mine, so like, you're just filling up the clock, which I'm all about. But oh man, I felt like I also have a lot more questions about Lord of the Rings, but we will move on, and I'll just ask you.
Listen, we can do a
personally.
whole Lord of the Rings episode. That is hilarious. Oh my god, that made me laugh so hard.
What are you doing? You just crawling? What you need?
Just walked, man.
Oh. Hey, pregnant belly doesn't get in the way of a good army crawl. Sorry about that, everybody. The manager Miranda was doing she was practicing swimming. But for my new nerd shit, so I it's October, so I've been getting into like the spooky season and trying to, at least for this podcast, I'm trying to get some stuff that's very like at least Halloween themey for the 2 episodes that are coming out this month. And so we watched the new Castlevania, speaking of Metroidvanias, but we watched the new Castlevania Nocturne anime. And have you watched any of the Castlevania animes on Netflix?
I know they're good. I know the reviews are high. People love the acting and the animation.
So I watched I've never finished the first series. I watched the first 2 seasons years ago. The first season I watched, Braden and I were on mushrooms. So like I have it's like a fever dream of a memory of the because we're rewatching it now, the first season, but like rewatching, I'm like, I don't remember almost any of this fucking
It's like
shit.
watching it for the first time.
So I don't really know the show, but I was like, Nocturne that came out last weekend, I was like, we got nothing really going on, let's just binge it. It's 8 episodes, and I really liked it. Like I for 8 episodes, the thing about Castlevania is it's fast. Like I remember when we watched the first season, even though we were on mushrooms, it was like 4 episodes fucking flew. I was like, I can't believe another episode's over. And it's the same with this show.
Did you have an affinity for Castlevania prior to the Netflix show? Did you know anything, play any of the games?
I've played a couple, which I was gonna So, but I don't know a lot, which is kind of one of the points I want to make.
That's why I was asking.
I played Castlevania Dawn of Sorrows for the DS when we were in 8th grade when it came out, and there was one on Game Boy Advance that I had played, but that's it. That's my extent with Castlevania. So I don't know a lot of the story or the lore. And because I went online after I watched it because I really liked the new one, Nocturne, and I guess it has 100% critics liked it, but I saw audiences were it was 53. It was a Last Jedi situation, and I kind of dove in to see what are people hating about this, and I guess this new series does change a lot of things from the games,
established canon,
but to me personally, and nobody who listens to this that might be a big Castlevania fan that is mad at that show, I don't know any of that, and those games are so old that any story, you know what I mean? When I watched the Mario movie, I wasn't they better be doing Super Mario World or I'm gonna be pissed. So you know what I mean? I just don't care if they change things because I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, if you go in as well, I mean, to be fair, you might be leading into some of my Ahsoka thoughts as well. But what's interesting there is I feel like if you are a new viewer of a thing and you like it for its self-contained story, then of course, why would you think back to whatever the Belmonts did back in 1997? You have
on
no
a pixelated side-scrolling fucking video game.
Super Nintendo storyline that doesn't mean anything to anybody.
And
nowadays.
I get that people do care, because I'm that way with certain things.
Of course,
it's the Rings of Power effect.
Caring,
did you watch Rings of Power? The show?
No, because the minute I started reading the reviews and I was in such a happy Lord of the Rings place, I was like,
I like that show. I thought it was a good show, but is it lore-wise super accurate? Absolutely not. But it's...
Yeah, I heard they took a lot of liberties.
I don't know. Adaptations for me, it just depends on how... I don't know. Because, I don't watch the Marvel movies and I'm well, that's not exactly issue 136 of Avengers.
That's a good point, because they took liberties there that some Marvel historians well, Spider-Man would have never done X, Y, and Z.
And that's what you do when you adapt things. And is it always perfect? No. And I like Rings of Power. I see where the issues are. I think you should watch it. But I mean...
Gonna have to, because honestly, again, I am on such a Lord of the Rings kick. I think actually the reason that stopped me was that I heard that it was slow as slug shit sometimes.
It can be. The first episode sure is.
Okay.
But I mean,
that to me, that was almost the reason why I thought the first, as much as we all love Andor, the first 3 episodes were slow and sluggish. And
that's a point I'm going to make about Ahsoka later as well, is about this sometimes things with slowness. But I'm all over the place right now. Yeah. But Castlevania, so like I said, lots of people didn't like it. I really did like it. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things that I liked about it without going too into spoiling. And I'll go into because now we're rewatching the original series, and I see the differences that people
are. They related?
They are. So the new one takes place 300 years after the first one. Okay. So it was because I looked into it, I was do I have to finish the first one to watch this one? And people are no. Okay. So, and there's a character that shows up from the old series at the very fucking end of episode 8 of the new one. But I don't know, it's really fast paced, which I appreciate. I like good pacing, especially with an anime, a 20-minute show. Don't waste my time with too much. It's not a show like Game of Thrones where you can take your time. So it gets right into it. The animation is gorgeous, and sometimes for me, a show's animation makes the story, even if the story's not super solid, which I'm not saying the story isn't solid, but a good animation can make even a subpar story. Because I love Demon Slayer. It's my number one anime currently.
So good.
I don't think the story's anything super special, but it's just so well animated and directed that it's hard not to be in love with it.
It goes back to our concept of it is improving on things that have done before. It is not original, but it's good at what it does. It's same concept of Castlevania.
And that's how I feel about the animation of Castle. Anytime there was a fight scene, the way, I don't know if you call it choreography, but the fight animation choreography is so pleasing to look at and watch.
Nice.
Did you see Guardians 3 by chance?
I did not.
There's a fight scene in that the way it's filmed, it's just so perfect. That's how I feel about a lot of Castlevania's scenes. And whenever big moments happen, you really feel them. there was a moment where I was like, oh, is he gonna light the whip on fire with his magic? And then he did, and he fucking killed these demons, and I was like, this is cool. Like, I'm not going into a Castlevania show for it to be Game of Thrones. You know what I mean?
Fair.
I'm going in for just like to have
I mean, at the core of it, right? It's a vampire killing story. Is
yes.
It not? Okay. So
yes.
I mean, pretty age as old as time kind of story. You can't put too much lipstick on that pig. You don't need to, maybe.
No.
Maybe is what I'm saying.
And like, there's a lot of things going on around it because, like I said, I don't know the lore. Like, there were a lot of vampire civilians, and I was like, is that just normal in this world? Like, there's just because like it's all based. The new season just all takes place in this one town, and by the end of it, like the vampire fucking lords come in and start wrecking shit. But like the people of the town and the vampire people of the town are like in league with them, and I was just so confused because out of nowhere I was like, why are there so many vampires? So I don't know. Maybe that can be answered in the original show for me, but I don't know because, like I said, I don't know the Castlevania lore. But 8 quick episodes of just something fun and kind of funny. Like it's gory. The guy says fuck a lot. Like it's
I didn't realize that it was like on the mature side either.
Oh yeah, it's certainly very mature, and
that makes me want to watch it even more. Like that, I think that's usually
when we went back to the original series. It was funny. Like we only watched 2 episodes, and Miranda was like, I forgot how much more graphic the original series is. So that's where you kind of start seeing, because they have a different writer and director, I think, for the new series, and like there's a guy that gets his fucking eyeball whipped out in the first series. It's very gruesome, and I feel like this series doesn't have as gruesome stuff going. Like they
took a step down.
Like you get slashes, blood shoots, but it's not like fucking organs and shit.
Losing an eyeball.
So it's less that, and like I would say the character writing in the original series is a little more, deeper, like better done, and like you like listening to character conversation more in the first one. Whereas, like I said, this one's just like we're getting shit done, and It ends in a way that a second season's coming. So.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, to be fair, I put it now on my list because you kind of sold me on the fact that it sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, and the first one, like I said, I watched the first 2 seasons, and I liked what I had watched, even though I barely remember it. And now we're working back through it, so I would recommend just go from the beginning, and then move on to Nocturne, because you kind of watch the animation get better, which is odd.
Yeah, even if like the story, the Netflix writer notes after the first season are like, you should take it down a notch with the blood and gore, and they're like, okay, but we're gonna make the animation better, and they're like, all right, perfect.
Which they absolutely do, and like I said, if you don't know, like there's this character in it, I think her name is Maria. She's black, but I guess she's not black in the games, and that pissed a lot of people. Like that's the kind of shit, you know what I mean? That's the kind of.
Okay.
So they changed the character around. You know how people online are with stupid stuff like that. So
wasn't that another problem with Lord of the Rings?
Right, yeah, there's a black elf. Too? Don't even fucking get me started.
Time for a conversation for a different time.
Sure, yeah, fuck. But so that and like my other new nerd shit goes along with that. I started playing one of the really it's on like the top of the list. It's Castlevania Symphony of the Night, I think is the name of it. Came out on PlayStation in I think 1997. And I heard it's like the best one. So I've been dicking around on that on my phone. I got a controller for my phone, and I've just been playing that. And, it's fun. It's Metroidvania style. Old. You definitely see its age. Like
well, I mean, it is half of the Metroidvania name. It is the Vania, right?
It is
so
probably
the
one.
origins.
Yes, in a way. Because I've played the first one, dicked around on it, but I've never played it to play it. Because so this is I think technically in the line, this is the 5th Castlevania game, if I'm not mistaken, and you play as Dracula's son, and it's cool. I like the how do I want to say this? When you go into your menu to equip stuff, you have stuff you can equip to your right hand, to your left hand, to your head, to your it kind of was an origin of that method of putting gear on
even assigning stuff to yourself.
Yes,
I didn't know
if you want to use a potion, you got to put it in one of your hands to use it. Yeah.
That's definitely different than the one that I've played.
Yes, me too, really. So it's fun, and you're just on this big map, and like a Metroid game, you got to go back and forth, and you get new abilities, you do all that kind of shit. But I'm having fun with it so far. It's cool to watch. We watched the anime, so I was like, oh, I want to play the game. It's only $3 on the App Store, so I was like, let's fucking go. This is one of the best ones, and
So my only experience with Castlevania it's called Super Castlevania 4, and it's for the Super Nintendo.
I've heard of that one.
And while I can't really speak to how good of a game it is, because I played it as a child, I don't really remember much of it. What I do say that I remember is that it is one of my top 5, 8, or 16-bit soundtracks ever created. It has one of the best Super Nintendo video game scores I've ever listened to, and even now, when I'm just like working, I'll find a playlist on YouTube and listen to it.
Holy shit.
It is a fantastic 16-bit soundtrack.
Yeah.
I highly encourage it. Even just like, I think it's the first song, maybe the second song. I can't remember if it's the title screen or the first level. It's just so good. Like, it is one of the best Super Nintendo songs ever made. And I'll argue with that till people are
I wonder if that game's on the Switch, like, Super Nintendo thing.
No, it's not. I can tell you that it's not. I do keep up on that because I love the little Super Nintendo mini store game thing.
Yeah.
That's fun. I have this cartridge actually in a tote in my basement, and I love this game, but the soundtrack beats whatever the gameplay is. It's just so good.
I've heard that people like that game, so it's probably a really fun game too, but
yeah, I honestly can't tell you anything about the gameplay. I know it was challenging to like a 9-year-old. I remember being very hard to a 9-year-old. But I just remember the fucking.
But the music has stayed with an almost 32-year-old.
Even now, like my brother and I will send us videos back and forth. Just be like, "Hey man, I don't know how your day's going, but I just want you to remember this song." And I'll just be like, "Damn, that's a good song. Oh, it's a good song."
I'll have to check that because I mean I like the music I'm hearing in the one I'm playing, but nothing has stood out to me just yet.
I'll send you some videos after this and just be like, this is the music that I work to anymore. It's good 8-bit stuff. That and Donkey Kong Country 2. Those are good soundtracks.
Those are two different vibes.
They are, but the music, award-winning. Yeah, all right. I'll stop talking about good soundtracks.
No, I'm going to throw in one more thing because I have had fucking Super Mario World's tune in my head all day. When you beat a level...
Really?
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And I don't know why. I haven't played the game in years, but it's been in my head all day.
That's the Super Nintendo one, right?
Yes.
This was my favorite Super Mario game. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was my very first video game, and I just feel like my brain is just, I don't know.
I don't think I knew that about you. That was also my very first video game for Super Nintendo. I don't think I knew that.
That was, it's my youngest memory of like, that's what we had.
I came home from religious ed, and my parents had given me a Super Nintendo with one game, and it was Super Mario World.
This is your new religion.
This is your god, and you know I haven't swayed since. You know, cannot say enough good about Super Mario World. It might have made me exactly the person I am today. Without that, I don't know. Like I don't even know.
I
would
have got into games too, but like I'm glad that's my starting one.
Fair,
but yeah. That's really all I have to say about Castlevania. Like I don't want to. If I got any more into it, I'd be spoiling shit. And fun games, fun show. I was gonna talk about this comic I was reading, but I actually didn't get super duper far into it, so I'm gonna hold that off for a little bit.
I'm gonna give you one more line that I just read right here on the Wikipedia page for Super Castlevania 4. The game received critical acclaim and is considered one of the greatest video games of all time.
Wow.
That's the last sentence of the first paragraph of the Super Castlevania 4 article.
Maybe you should get your Super Nintendo out and
I know, it's all in a back in a tote. I think maybe it's time I hook it back up and give it a go, because apparently it's it. That's the game.
Well, I think there's a lot of games that like I like going back to now as an older like Super Castlevania. If I played that when I was fucking 4 or 5 years old, I would have no idea what I was doing. Absolutely no idea what I was doing. No. So same with Final Fantasy games. Like I've been going back and playing a lot of those, and it's like, yep, I was never going to figure this out as a kid.
For me right now, I picked it up on the App Store. It's just Chrono Trigger, which is huge, obviously for Super Nintendo. I tried to play it as a kid. The concepts of it very much blew me away. I really didn't know what was going on half the time. Playing it on my phone, I'm like, yeah, this is a cool story. I like the mechanics of this game. This is fun now. Yeah. As a 31-year-old adult.
Now your brain's fully developed. It's like, you can actually have a good time.
Yeah.
RPGs, I didn't know dude, when we were little, Super Mario RPG, I had no fucking idea what was going on that game. And
turn-based balancing. And
Pokemon was the first time that I think I actually figured it out.
Yeah, but even Pokemon, if I go back far enough, I had one level 100 Pikachu that I just ran the Elite Four with.
Oh,
I didn't even really know about good Pokemon development at that time.
Oh, boy.
My first Pokemon Yellow.
I figured it out, but I mean, I remember the first time I played Pokemon, I put it in my Game Boy. I didn't know about saves. I got like a Bulbasaur. I was just clicking A. And then after that instance, I went into the manual and then I figured it out. But other than that,
that's funny.
We're all over the place here.
Oh yeah, well we'll circle back up. I think I am good on the nerd shit.
I think I am as well. I'm gonna actually take my blanket that I'm wearing off because I'm sweating my balls off. So give me 1 second. Well, I guess my mic's still picking up my voice even though I don't hear anything. But
I mean, there's a mute.
Those whiskeys are kicking in.
Oh, we got the body show.
Oh. All right.
And that video, viewers, is Chase's stomach.
Yeah, you like that jiggly bit?
We're getting into the dark portion of nerd shit in the dark.
That's what the dark. That's why we threw in the dark part, because it was more adult. Was the idea?
Cover the bases,
Yeah,
makes sense. Let's talk some Ahsoka.
Let's talk some Ahsoka. I've been looking forward to this. I think we were only 4 episodes in, and I was like, this should be what we cover on our episode.
This should be what we talk about. I was concerned. I didn't know if I'd be able to catch up.
I was a little worried too. But when you said you watched 2 episodes,
I mainlined it.
You did, which is the best way to watch it, I think.
Yeah, I don't put breaks in it. I think overall that it is a good piece of media. The problem is I don't know where I would rank it in terms of the other Star Wars TV shows that have come out. Personally,
okay.
I think that my tagline of it is that when you, kind of going back to what you were saying about some of the Castlevania stuff in terms of old versus new and people's opinions of old stuff versus new stuff. If you take the story that Ahsoka is showing you without knowing a whole lot about Clone Wars or Rebels, it is a fantastic show. It is really good at what it does.
Yeah.
It's engaging. There's so many times where I was just like, the fact, what is it, the third episode where they go to Corellia and they find out that the Empire still got tendrils into the shipbuilding people as they're tearing
I think
it
it's
down.
the second episode.
The second episode. As soon as that happened, I was like, this is cool. I love the concept of holdouts in the Empire still existing and everybody being blissfully ignorant to the fact that no, nobody would be like that. The Empire's dead. And it's just that's not how life works, man. You've got 1 million planets. People are still going to be loyal to the old ways of life. And I was into it. I was into that story. I was into it all the way to the end. However, here's where I think my bad thoughts come in.
Okay.
And this is kind of my umbrella statement about this show. It is, in my opinion, the first piece of Star Wars media that you almost need to insert into the story that it's okay, wait, how do I say this?
At the edge of my seat.
It is a piece of media that was developed in the middle of the timeline that it existed in, and without the front half of it, which is the only piece of media that was technically optional as a Star Wars fan, being the cartoons of it, it takes away from what Ahsoka is. And by that I mean, Obi-Wan, we all know who Obi-Wan was. That was not, there was no weird thing there. If you're a Star Wars fan, you've watched the movies. That's not an argument. Depending on how old you are, though, you may not have watched the cartoons. You may not have really paid attention, especially Rebels. There's so much assigned in Rebels. Now, I know you had said something to me way back at the beginning where you said, I watch it and I don't have an issue not knowing about Rebels because it's just what Star Wars does. In episode 4, they talk about the Clone Wars. You don't know what the Clone Wars are. You don't really care. They're just telling you about a point in time. But some of the most emotionally charged reactions that you're supposed to have to Ahsoka need to be based in that you have an attachment to the people that they already established. I didn't know who Ezra was. I didn't care who Ezra was. That was not important to me as an Ahsoka fan because for a self-contained story, I just need to know that this individual named Ezra Bridger was missing and he may have disappeared with Thrawn. That's good enough for me. However, when his big reveal is shown on episode 7 or whatever it is, what does that mean to me? As a person, everybody's like, oh my God, he's alive. He's got his lightsaber. Look, and look at this tie back to what's his name? Canon,
Kanan.
Hera's husband, Kanan.
Yeah.
You know, tied back to Kanan, and they're referencing all these people and stuff, and I'm just like, yes, I'm excited for you. That's awesome, and it's a cool highlight moment. That's obviously what we were trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
But then on the opposite end of it too, not going too far away, is that they ended it in a way where the story itself didn't really... There isn't a resolution yet, technically, because Thrawn's back.
Yes.
Cool. What does that mean? Don't know. Balin's skull, rest in peace, Rey, is standing on top of some characters that apparently you are supposed to know from Rebels in a statue form. But he doesn't really talk about what he's even doing there or being excited about. So it starts where you're supposed to know stuff. It ends without really any climax. As a story, it's fantastic. As a holistic platform,
you got issues.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think if I were more cynical of a human and not just a Star Wars diehard in a lot of ways, I can see this not being a satisfying TV show.
I will agree that the finale, though, I really did enjoy it. When people said they had issues with it, I was like, I don't blame you, because I agree with that. I
liked the finale. I liked the finale.
I liked it as an episode, but it doesn't end. You're right. It doesn't
end. And it doesn't end. And there's a few callbacks, like I guess some of the stuff that he was doing when he was building his lightsaber was a funny callback to Rebels. There was stuff with the statues that he's standing on to being the father and the brother and a crushed sister. Statue.
Yeah, that's from the Clone Wars.
Right. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. Why would you if you didn't?
It's just like, so why did this really impactful scene where Skull's standing on these statues and they're zooming out and like it felt grandiose and it felt like it was a build-up, and I'm just like, if I didn't Google this, I don't think I'd know why this matters to people.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel like a lot of Ahsoka, while the story was good, the Hera stuff, the Anakin stuff I have a lot of thoughts on. I can get into that a little bit. But the tie-ins the story was cool. I had a lot of fun. But it's not, you can't consume it alone almost. You have to consume it. It is a main course to being served an appetizer. And you need to eat that appetizer to appreciate the main course.
So I have some thoughts on that, but I will agree with you on, well, I mean, I do agree with you. But I really agree with you on when Ezra and Sabine like got back together. Like I watched the first couple seasons of Rebels, but like I'm not super into it.
There's only like 4, right?
There's 4, and I think I watched 2, and then I just kind of kept up with like info from it.
Sure.
But when they met back up, I felt nothing. Like I felt nothing. And so I don't know. Yeah, that scene was just. I think I felt more when Ahsoka met up with him and they like hugged, and I don't know. I think the scene was just better. But like
that's exactly it, right? As a story, Ahsoka showing that emotion, fantastic.
Right.
Knowing that there's history there, I'm just kind of like, well, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that part kind of stunk. But that was like I would, because it was also like. I also didn't feel anything about this guy because I only have known him as an animated character, and now he's this bearded, real person who, that actor does a great job. Like, I totally buy him as the real-life version of that character.
One of my notes right at the top was every actor killed their role to no end.
Yeah,
I love
for
the
sure.
acting. I love the acting, and I love the casting for everybody, including Sabine, when I hear a lot of people mad at certain things that she did as a character.
Yeah.
It actually works in my favor that I don't have a history with her, because as her in that show, I thought she was great.
Yeah.
She was a troubled youth with a lot of history, and I loved the way she presented it.
Yeah. So this is I was going to text you this. So last week, I was like, okay, we're going to do this podcast. So I want to rewatch the whole series in a swoop before the finale. And I got really high. And I told myself, I want to, because the feeling, I texted you originally, the feeling that the first 2 episodes gave me of Ahsoka when I watched it was like, it gave me this feeling and this atmosphere almost in the show that I felt when I read those stories as a kid. Like when I would read about extended universe stuff, like the zombie stormtroopers and Thrawn and the Yujin Vaughn. Those first, even the beginning of the first episode, I felt like I was in that feeling that I had.
Okay.
So I had that immediately.
That description. That's good. I remember those feelings.
Even the scroll at the beginning, it's not the same. It's red. It's different. But I was just like this. As soon as that came on, I was like, oh, this is everything all these shows have always needed, and I don't know why they don't have it. So
That's a great point.
when I did my rewatch, I said to myself, I'm going to watch this with the mindset of, what if this was the first Star Wars thing that came out after Return of the Jedi? Like, maybe the prequels, but say like we just had the prequels, just had Return of the Jedi, and then this story comes out. Does it make sense, and does it work in that perspective? And along my watch, like the way the first 2 episodes kind of rolled, I was like, I think this could. Because like I said, it gave me that vibe and that feeling. And like, because you're just thrown into this world where like it's after Return of the Jedi. There is, you get the opening scene with Balin, who's, I'm not a Jedi, and he just mows down that whole place. Yeah, fucking love that scene. People bitched about that scene, and I was like,
I could talk for 15 hours on Balin's skull.
Balin alone, dude, not having him in with whatever they do next fucking sucks, because he killed it.
I don't even just mean from Ahsoka. I want to go back and watch Ray Stevenson's be an actor in other things now, based on how much I loved the way he portrayed this character.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to have somebody else play him. But like that opening scene, and you're just introduced to like, oh, like what is this new threat coming in? That they're not a Jedi, but like they seem to not be Sith either. Like, what the fuck's that about? And then you're introduced to this Jedi character that's like, oh, who is this? And you learn, oh, I walked away from Anakin. And if it's right after Return of the Jedi, you're like, oh my god, her master is Anakin Skywalker, Darth
Watching
Vader.
It through your lens is awesome.
I was going to text you that and say, try to watch it like that, because I was super vague, but I was like, yes, I think this works. I think that you're introduced to these characters who know each other, but like, they give you enough for that. Like, a lot of people's gripes were, I didn't watch Rebels. And I'm just like, I don't know, unless you know it's there, so you say you didn't watch it. But if you didn't, would it matter? Because there's so much jargon in the first Star Wars movie that you're just like,
I don't argue your point there. I think you're right. I think you're very right on the fact that Star Wars has always been a movie or a piece of medium that it's almost what they say when you're reading a comic book, you have to read between the panels. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reading between the panels in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. George Lucas, 77, he referenced a bunch of things that weren't even in the realm of being a possibility until 99, right? Like, it's incredible how long you had to just assume you knew things from that first movie watch. So when I say that I feel like I was lacking something from not watching Rebels, I'm not really viewing it as a slight. As I said at the beginning, I still like the show. There is no me talking down to it. But I really think that it's like a weird piece of tube in some sort of like drain the sink game. Wasn't there a game on mobile where you have to like make tubes and make the water go out? This needs to fit into the middle of a tube to really like have the flow. You can enjoy it, but like until you plug that piece in. But when you bring up this perspective, I like it a lot.
It's a fun way to watch it.
If you realize, like, and what's cool about the way you say that too is that if you watch it that perspective, I've never seen any other media, just Return of the Jedi and the first trilogy. When Anakin shows up and you've got this like expansion on what the Force can do, the world between worlds and all this
right, because the Force is still a mystery too at that point.
Right. You have no idea any of this, and now all of this stuff doesn't feel cheesy or established. It feels
mystical again,
new and wild,
and that's something I really liked about the show too. Is like it really leaned into the mystical, the not sci-fi but science fantasy that Star Wars kind of is.
Yeah,
and like it got into like, yes, it's bigger stuff that if you want to go and learn more about it, there's cartoons and shit you can learn more about it. But like, just as it is, I mean, it's kind of fun.
As a self-contained piece of media, it is fun.
This really is the Clone Wars when they do the flashback and it's all that fucking shit. Like, if all you knew about the Clone Wars was Luke Skywalker saying like, you fought in the Clone Wars, and you're just seeing all this fucking crazy shit. I loved that episode, dude.
I definitely agree. I thought it was good. What was one of my notes on this though? I did have a little bit of a problem with it just because I don't think I understand completely what it was trying to do. Like, I loved it. It was fantastic fan service. It was cool to see the fight and hear the dialogue and the conversation. But once it was done, I was just kind of like, why would she ever, do you want to live or do you want to die? Ask it 4 times. Eventually she says, well, I want to live. And then it's like, okay, was the concept that she ever was thinking about dying? Is that the assumption then?
I think this is where my perspective of watching it does take a little fall, because I think you do realize that, like, through Ahsoka and the other things, is that she does feel kind of responsible for Anakin becoming Darth Vader, and you wouldn't really know that just watching the show. Like, you see her face it in Rebels a little, like when she finds out.
So maybe that again is another one of my perspectives where there could have just been more power if I had had a little bit more backstory. But like, I just didn't get it. I was like, why does he keep asking her if she wants to live or die? Why would she want to die?
I think it's because she hasn't really been living since after.
I mean, that's
all
fair.
That.
That's good. I didn't know that. So, I'll say it this way. It's just that, again, it's really fun. I had so much fun.
I really liked it. Yeah.
There are so many cool little things that they do in that. Even some of the lightsaber fights being more
the lightsaber fights were fucking awesome.
Some of them being more in that style of like tension and samurai-esque, where it's like quick strikes and then the battle's over pretty much. Like, that was so good. But then the stuff in the forest where it was like Sabine fighting Baylan Skoll's apprentice Shin Hati. Shin Hati. Like, when they're in the forest, I was like, okay, that's cool, because you can see Sabine's not that good of a fighter, but she's trying, and like, damn, those parts were so good.
Fun to watch, absolutely. Yeah, where the story needed to be good story, I thought the story was pretty decent story, and where the action needed to be fun action, it really, like, the final lightsaber versus the fucking Night Sister sword thing.
That was wicked. That was wicked in terms of, again, like a really purposeful, tension-filled fight of like quick movements. It was well choreographed as well. I did not expect the chick who looks like Dr. Eve.
Yeah.
Whatever her name is. She looked like that chick.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. Awesome power.
Bring in the
sharks. Bring in the stormtroopers.
They were good. She was good. I liked it. I like the Night Sister, the Night Mother stuff.
Dude, I don't know so if fucking cool.
I don't know again if that has backstory. I think it probably does.
It does, yeah.
I really just liked the way they looked. I liked the way they acted. They were creepy, but also like subservient to Thrawn, which was interesting.
Well, I think the Night Sisters in themselves is like a way of like, you get the idea. Oh, there must be more story here. But I think the show presented enough for you to be like, I got it, though. Like, I don't need to know what the Night Sisters are about to be like, oh, they have some weird force abilities and it allows them to do
when you tie that to the ending of, like, Skull standing on the mountain, the statues, you kind of do in your own head go, all right, Night Sisters are, or not Night Mothers are here. There's these statues. There seems to be a lot of weird affiliation to the Force. Skull wanted to be here for a purpose. You do realize that, okay, there is backstory. I could go in depth into Rebels. So I agree with you. You don't need to hear the full explanation. You don't need to be spoon-fed it to fully appreciate it.
Right. But I do agree that I think my biggest gripe with the show is, one, we don't really know what's coming next. Like, we know they're making a movie. We don't know if they're making another season of Ahsoka. So, like, leaving Baylan's story with just, like, even if you... Like, I know the storyline behind the father, the son, and the daughter, but I don't know what Baylan's doing. Like, I wish they would have gave us just something to explain, like, this is what he's
talked in
doing.
Such obscurities, because even like when he's talking to Shin about like what they're, you know, she's like, well, then we'll have power, and he's like, yes, but that power is fleeting. We want this other new beginning, and we're like, mate, you're talking in such obscurities.
Yeah, which is why I thought by the finale we'd get something out of that. So the fact that we didn't, especially knowing that he's not going to be the guy playing him again, is just, it's a little upsetting. But even if he was alive, I'd be like, oh, I would have liked to know what that storyline was, because he's literally one of the first characters you see on this show is Baylan. You see him before Ahsoka.
Because there was a question that I think I had read somewhere, or I don't know if it was Reddit or whatnot, but somebody just said, like, okay, Ray Stevenson, I can't remember. Stevenson. He's dead, and there's very much a long thread line underneath Baylan's skull. How do you elegantly cut it off? Do you recast, or do you make them disappear in the in-betweens? Like, do you just be like, and then he died to some of those wolves you've seen on Perdea? Like, how do you, like, I don't, how do you do this? How do you do it elegantly? I don't know.
You want my opinions?
Answer? Yeah, go for it.
That's who I got. I got you either recast him. I think, even though I love him as the character, and you know me, I hate when you change characters and stuff, but like, you've presented too good of a character to get rid of him now. So I think you either recast or you explain to the audience why whatever he's doing with in here that you still recast, but like you could get a younger actor and like whatever he did caused him to change his look. Kind of like a Doctor Who sort of thing.
Yeah.
To explain why it's a different looking person now. So it's to me that those are the two options. It's that or do fucking CGI face like they've been doing with Luke Skywalker.
Or I mean,
and I don't think they should do that either.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they've also established weird-looking clones. I mean, Snoke was an attempt at cloning the Emperor. You might be able to do something even clone-y with him if you wanted to get weird, because then you'd even mimic some of the Thrawn stuff from the extended trilogy, where Joruus C. C'baoth was a clone by Thrawn, and the
right, because that's who we thought he was going to be.
Right? Yeah. So there's still a reality that you could salvage it, but God, it's so sad. It's so sad.
It is sad because he plays him so, like, it's hard to even picture somebody else doing that. But to get more of that story that I think is so worth seeing, you got to do it, which sucks, but you got to do it.
I was trying to look at my notes here because there were some other notes I had on Balin as well, but I maybe might have hit most of them because it was just too funny. I got a random note here that says Mr. Krabs cameo. Because they had Clancy Brown as the mayor.
Yes.
One town. And Mr. Krabs' voice actor is now lore of Star Wars.
Well, he's in Rebels, I think. He's actually the narrator of, I think, Clone Wars. I think he's the guy that's just like, last time on Clone Wars.
I did not know that. I didn't know that Clancy Brown had such a love of Star Wars. There's a lot of really cool Asian lore tie-ins.
Definitely.
I mean, the Chimera coming back as Thrawn's ship. Thrawn himself, very good. I liked it. I think that he could have been a little bit more tactical, but I think the way they did his dialogue was pretty cool. They just kept him very cold and calculating. That was cool.
I thought one of his better, because you're right, they should have showed him do something more tactical. I don't think the plot really gave him a chance to. But one of my favorite lines from him was when, like, he talks about not underestimating the Jedi. Like, I've underestimated them before. And I just think that showed, like, a character that, like, where the rest of them are like, don't fucking worry about it. Like, he's a guy that's like, I've lost to these people. I'll never.
Gives him good credence. Gives him good credence to how smart
I really
he
enjoyed
is.
that line, yeah.
I read a line online that I thought was really dumb, but whatever. Was that Thrawn was more terrifying than the Emperor at Induction. As in, the first time they show Thrawn live action was more terrifying and imposing than the first time they showed the Emperor. And I'm just like, that might be one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard. Because that episode, like when the Emperor first walks onto the Death Star and you've got like leagues and that music in the background, Thrawn being introduced was cool, but it wasn't more terrifying than when the Emperor's introduced. Just a random line that I read.
I would.
That's dumb.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, it's a cool scene. It's a cool.
Yes, his stormtroopers are really cool.
But it's it's one of those ones that kind of is based on one. Have you seen Rebels 2? Do you know Thrawn? Do you know even the extended universe stuff of Thrawn? Because otherwise, I don't think it really does hit the same way. Because at least in Star Wars, you know there's an Empire, you know there's an Emperor, you see him in The Empire Strikes Back, you know he's this menacing figure, so when he finally shows up, it's like...
That's huge, right?
Oh, fuck. People that are afraid of Darth Vader in that opening scene are more like, oh no, the Emperor's coming.
There's
like,
somebody worse?
Fuck,
what?
man, shit. So, I maybe that's a nostalgia thing for
I don't know, I read that and I actually put it down because I just put a big word no beside it in my notes, because I was like, no, that's a dumb take.
Not yet, at least. I was...
You hit a good point there too, though, because I liked seeing Thrawn not because of Rebels, but because of the history that I have with the character from the novels. As a person who, yet again, much like seeing Ezra for the first time, has no banana for scale in terms of what Thrawn's supposed to be, why do you care for this man at all as a viewer of the TV show?
You've just been told he's scary.
He's scary, and then a blue-eyed dude or a red-eyed dude with blue skin shows up, and you're like, oh, yeah, he's pretty weird looking.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I do see that perspective, too. I didn't think that way, but now you're kind of exposing a even more past bias that I have.
Yeah. You kind of got to look at it in all sort of ways of, like, does this land if you don't know A, B, and C? In some ways it does. It's one of those things, because like I said, even if you're watching it in the perspective of if this is the first thing after, like most things you've watched for the first time, it does get better, and now that you know characters more on another watching, like Star Wars gets continuously, Lord of the Rings, every time I watch it, I'm like, this is better every 100%. Time. Better every time. So like I think in the long term it can have that effect, especially when they do more stuff with the character. But upon first viewing, I mean, you've been told Thrawn's scary. Here he is. Yeah. He didn't do anything yet, though. So like whatever they do with him next is big.
And they didn't even make him that scary. You kind of hit it already. Like, you know, he wasn't as tactical or as menacing as he
just had to get the fuck out of there. You know,
right?
He just had to go home.
I'm tired of being on this stupid planet. I'd like to leave now. There's weird crayfish.
You're almost more worried about what the Night Sisters can do, because at least they have supernatural abilities.
I mean, they pulled Lisbeth over to her with dreams. You know, like that's pretty cool. I guess I don't have a lot of opinions on the Thrawn and the Night Mother stuff, just for the fact that, like we said, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the purpose is.
Right.
Their aesthetic was cool. Their on-screen time was interesting, but it almost feels like this is a trilogy that needs to be explored way more.
Definitely.
And it makes me nervous too, because as you said as well, there is no Ahsoka season 2 planned right now. The movie for the cross-contamination of the TV shows is multiple years out. Is it even confirmed anymore?
I mean, it's
like
just,
so much that's been hack and slash.
Just hasn't been talked of, yeah.
So it's just like, okay, what do we do from here without fully knowing what happens before this in the new canon, and what really kind of we're only gonna have a full opinion of Ahsoka
once we see
10
it all.
years.
Yeah.
In 10 years, we'll then be able to rate Ahsoka appropriately. But as it stands, as a self-contained thing, it's good. It's not better than like Mando season 1, I don't think. It's not better than Andor. It's good, but then like when it like sets into the full storyline, it'll be like, oh my god, what it established in that TV show was the best Star Wars media ever.
Yeah, and I think it does have potential, and I just hope, I pray that with such because like nothing really gets wrapped up. The only story that really gets wrapped up is they do get Ezra and Thrawn back to the main galaxy.
Yeah, Hera hugs Ezra.
Right. So they do that, but everything else, what Thrawn put in those pods that they were taking back, that they were making sure they were taking back, what they're doing on Dathomir, what Ray Stevenson's doing, what's going on with Ahsoka and Sabine now that they're stuck. Nothing has really been answered. So you hope with that many threads that they have a long-term story ready, unlike they did with the sequels. So that's because like with the sequels, it was like Force Awakens tells its own story and then has a little something to be like in for next time, but they didn't have a fucking plan. Whereas with this, it was like it doesn't tell its whole story, and almost it doesn't even really tell you there's something coming next, but you hope to God there is.
I mean, there has like you can't
end there. Yeah.
But it also sounds like Disney's kind of losing its mind right now with like hack and slash they got the new CEO in there. He's cutting things like nobody's business. I'm literally afraid that the future is just in jeopardy as a whole. Like, are they going to finish it? Will they do something with the movie?
I think they will. I think they'll stick to it, because here's the thing, and here's another perspective to look at it in, is there is a lot going on with Ahsoka, the series, that is very, you can tell that Dave Filoni not only knows his Star Wars, but that motherfucker is a Lord of the Rings fan. There is a lot of very like similar things to Lord of the Rings going on as well. Whether it's the aesthetic of that planet with like the statues and just like fucking the main castle that Thrawn is in looks like Minas Tirith.
I actually looked at it and I was like, it looks like Isengard's tower. Like it just like goes, not with pointy things, but just like...
Yeah. So like, and the way that Ahsoka kind of ends reminds me a little like how I felt after finishing the Fellowship of the Ring. I was like, what? We're not done here?
You've got like 6 different storylines all threaded. That's fair too.
And it became my favorite thing ever made with Return of the King. So if Ahsoka can do anything close to that, in any way they plan on doing it.
Truly, if they can tie up or really establish what's coming next in the next form, whether it's a movie or a TV show, then it could easily jettison itself up there as like some of the best Star Wars media easily, because I think that they laid enough groundwork to be really cool. And I don't think I get the hate. I just don't. Like, even like if you didn't know the prequel stuff, the Rebels and Clone Wars stuff, I don't get the animosity. I think it's a really good TV show.
I saw less hate as the weeks went on. Like, when it first started, I did see people bitching. I've seen, it's still there, but like, it's Star Wars. It's always going to be there. But
right,
like,
yeah.
I've seen less. I saw more people being more excited as weeks were coming. So but there are people that didn't like it. And to me, I'm going to say this, and this is, I always say things about Star Wars that I think if people listen to this show, that I can just say things like that they'll hate me for, like how I like the sequels. You know what I mean? And I'm going to say it again. Because even though I think Andor is the exception to what Star Wars usually is, you know what I mean? Like,
sure, I can agree with that 100%.
But Ahsoka to me is my favorite of the shows that have come out since they started doing shows. It's my favorite one. Even though Andor is a better, more tightly written. I said on the last podcast, Star Wars isn't fucking Christopher Nolan. You know what I mean? It's melodrama. But Andor is the Christopher Nolan fucking type of Star Wars.
That's fair. I think I heard it. I don't know. Did you guys say it or did I hear it somewhere else where Ahsoka is Star Wars, but Andor is sci-fi? And like the idea is that like it has a broader appeal. Ahsoka, you need to be a Star Wars fan. Andor, you could just kind of be into noir sci-fi-esque drama and still be interested in
That's fair. And that's what kind of makes it a better show. Like, I will say Andor is probably the best Star Wars quality-wise that Star Wars has ever been. But to me, Ahsoka it created all these feelings and excitement, and to me, what Star Wars is to me was in that show, and I really liked it. I really liked it. And
I don't think that's first off, I'm sure that's a hot take to somebody, but I don't think that's too much of a hot take. I think that it did do enough to assign itself. The way you describe watching the first 2 episodes and getting that expanded universe feeling of like new and unknown and exciting, I think that's a very real way to watch Ahsoka, and I don't think you were in the wrong for that. In fact, I can see why through that lens you would call it the best, because at what it did was new, was fresh, was fresh. It was unknown.
It's something that I wasn't looking for in the sequels to make me feel that way. And then it brought it back, and I was like, oh, this is what the sequels probably should have made me feel like.
I think the reason why I would knock it down a few things, probably behind something like the first season of The Mandalorian, and
which is probably my second, honestly.
Right. I think that I'd transpose the two, because I think I would just say that I had those feelings from The Mandalorian when I saw things that they weren't doing in Star Wars movies, like him going to random planets and not really interacting with Jedi, and then meeting a Yoda-like figure, and then seeing AT-STs repurposed in the woods to terrorize little villages. Like, all that stuff to me was like,
super cool.
It's the expanded universe. And I think the only reason I didn't feel it for Ahsoka is just it's been done now. Or I burnt that serotonin. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've been giving us a lot of Star Wars lately, so.
Exactly. Now it's almost over too saturated. Not true. Don't listen to me, Disney. But it is good. I have trouble rating these because each one has something about it that I think is better than any of the other ones in comparison.
Okay.
I have a hard time telling you that I think Obi-Wan Kenobi's TV show is bad when it had the fight scenes and the dialogue that it had. Like, it's really good for what it did between Obi-Wan and Anakin. Is it a good TV show? No. Did the other stuff make up for it? Kinda. I think I've rewatched those clips on YouTube about 150 times.
Yeah.
They're really good.
They are pretty good.
So it's hard for me to say that it's a bad TV show when I think some of those dialogue scenes might be some of my favorite Star Wars ever written. So where do I think Ahsoka sits? I don't know.
That's something to ponder.
Sure, I do think that Mando might still be better, and like you said, I think Andor's the best story that they've ever put together onto media. I love that, so maybe it's sitting third right now, Ahsoka is. I don't know. It's really hard to say. I really like those Obi-Wan scenes.
For me, it was what kind of told it to me that I was liking it so much was I think it was the first of the Star Wars shows that I was like giddy waiting for like the next episode. As I'm waiting weekly, like. And I don't feel that way about a lot of TV shows I watch. So knowing that it's like Tuesday, I'm waking up pumped. It's 7:00 here. I'm like, 2 hours till the next episode. Especially when when the one ended with Anakin showing up at the end, and I knew the next episode he was going to be involved in. I was just like, I can't fucking wait to see this episode. I can't wait to see this episode. And every week after that, I was like, I'm so pumped. And one of my friends that I talked to about that specific episode was like, especially when the next one came on, he liked how the dynamic between episode 5 is like you're dealing with the past, you're dealing with the Clone Wars, you're dealing with all this Star Wars past stuff. And then it went to the next episode where we're doing just completely, it's the future. It's this new, like we've never been to a new galaxy in Star Wars with the witches. It just went from like one episode's the old, the next episode's the new. And I was like, that's so cool. Yeah.
That Anakin stuff was, from a filming perspective, so fucking cool. That stuff was so fucking cool.
Yeah.
The Clone Wars stuff was beautiful and perfect. I loved the young Ahsoka character. That was really smart and cool. The way that he flashes between Vader and Anakin in the smoke and the lights.
Dude, fucking awesome. I about shit myself when I saw it. Yep.
So incredible. When he comes running down the gangway and it like flashes to Vader and then Anakin comes out of it.
And he's speaking and it's the two voices. Yeah.
That was such cool, like fan service, whatever, images. It was fantastic. I still stand by the fact that I don't know if it was necessary for whatever it was doing, but what they did, I easily top 5 scenes in that TV show because the stuff that they did in the Clone Wars, especially when like Anakin's getting heated at young Ahsoka for not understanding being a warrior, like you could almost see the inner workings of Ahsoka's head being like, technically it's like, this is parental abuse and now I know why I'm broken. But like, it was just so powerful. It was so good.
Yeah.
Because of the actress really sold her part of being confused on like, why do we have to be fighters? Like, do I have to teach my apprentice to be a fighter? And she's like quizzical about the fact that like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And then you go back and like, you see them fighting and Anakin's still the same person that he was in that conversation in the past, where now he's post Vader and he's still fighting. He's still constantly trying to beat everything. And that's what he is. He's broken and he's a fighter. And Ahsoka's like, dude, I want to live, but like, not like you. Up to that point, we had heard a couple of times an apprentice is everything that her master was, and his or her master was, and his or her master was. So I think Ahsoka, wanting to live is probably breaking the chain from being that next birth fighter that may have been Anakin, which may have been Qui-Gon, which may have been Count Dooku. You follow that chain, and you're just like, they've all been fighters, and they've all been rebels and rogues in their own right in terms of their order. And then Ahsoka broke it. Ahsoka was like, I'm done being the fighter. I'm done being the Jedi, because obviously if my lineage up to this point is what Jedis are, that ain't me. Fuck that. And, I think they could have worded the live or die better and probably encapsulated the story that I just told, and I would have been 100%.
That was well put.
Yeah, I think that like that is why I
encapsulated by that.
Right. So like maybe that's how I viewed it. And I think my beef with it is that like it's not a live or die thing. It's more just like, I don't want to be like you. They took it to like, I'm going to die as a person to not be like you, but still, I loved that scene. It was so good.
And there's a little bit of accepting, like she has to accept that he did die and end good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, though I did this awful shit, I came back to the guy that you respect by the end of it.
And there is a place for fighting. I understand now what I have to do, because I didn't want to be a fighter. I didn't want to be a soldier. Let me rephrase that. Actually, I like the second sentence better. I didn't want to be a soldier, but I will fight for what I need to fight for. Yeah. And it was good. Like, again, the growth that is in Ahsoka, whether it's Sabine realizing that like shit isn't always flowers and watermelons, like sometimes it sucks ass, and life's hard. And that growth to kind of understanding, like, listen, I'm going to be here for Ahsoka. I probably doomed the universe because I let Thrawn come back by not blowing up the map when I was supposed to.
Well, you understand why she doesn't.
But I didn't go back with Ezra, and I learned and through growth that, I need to be here with Ahsoka to figure my life out. So much growth in all of it. It's great. It's good. Like, it's great. I still stand by
You're talking your way through it. No.
I mean, I'm still where I'm at, but like, I don't think I've changed my opinion because that's why I said, as an encapsulated story, it's very good. It's very good as an encapsulated story, and I guess at the end of the day, it's kind of how you have to take it anyway, because that's all it is. It is an encapsulated story.
Yeah.
You like to do this thing in Star Wars where how does it fit in the larger galaxy? But at the end of the day, it's a TV show. It's a season of a TV show. You have to take it for that as well,
Yeah.
We like to put it on the map, but like, it's also right here. It's not, up there. It's right there. So.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, like, what if that was the direction they would have went with, like, the post, episode 7 is like, how about we do the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker before he was Darth Vader?
I think
not that I don't like Rey, but
you could have like spun it a little bit more to like combine a few different aspects. You could have kept it Skywalker Saga if you wanted to keep Anakin a bit of a player in it with Ahsoka being around or something to that effect. You can even bring Luke into it if you'd like to.
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, it's part of that Mandoverse. Luke has already been in it. Like, Luke and Ahsoka have had scenes together.
I know a lot of people were waiting for the Luke, the Luke cameo. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's gonna happen. He's gonna show up somewhere. He's gonna rescue him off that planet or something."
Wouldn't that be something? I didn't need it, dude. I'm telling you, the Anakin Skywalker stuff, especially his Ghost at the very end, that was all I wanted from the sequels. Was Ghost Anakin in him, and he was never, in them. And that alone, when I saw him, I was just like, I don't know. I'm a sequel or prequel era Star Wars fan. Hayden is Darth Vader to me. There he was, just swinging that lightsaber around and then smiling at the end. Like, I just...
I also will say that I didn't hate the random refreshing C-3PO cameo. Thought that was kind of cool.
I
thought
also
it was
liked
just
that.
nice.
I smiled.
It wasn't a big thing. I just thought it was like a cool, like, hey, this is a connecting thread to the fact that this is happening in this post-Return of the Jedi universe. There is a Leia. There is a C-3PO. They are around. And I just thought it was a really cool way to, like, throw out that lifeline again. I thought, I was like, hey, that's cool. It grounds the story back to familiar territory. And I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I definitely smiled when he showed up.
Yeah, when he came in, I was just like, oh, shit, that's cool.
It's a good way of doing it.
Also really like that they brought back the Mon Mothma actress. I like her. I think that she's got the nobility of a senator about her, especially in the Star Wars universe. I like her. That Senator Xino guy, he actually has a compatriot in the Heir to the Emperor TV show books. Sorry, not TV show books. There's a Bothan senator that is obtrusive, unbelievable, always slightly Empire-esque. Like, you're always like, is he a double agent for the Empire? So that Senator Xeno, they actually kind of did the thing again where they married it up to the Thrawn, the Joruus C. Kaboth. They actually tied it back to a Timothy Zahn novel, having a senator who always seems like an antagonist.
Yeah.
Thought that was a cool, like, connection that people might have missed.
I definitely did. That's cool.
In fact, if you follow that Bothan, I can't remember, I think his name's Feyla, Feyla. If you follow him up through some of the extended universe books prior to the Great Canon Shift, he actually ends up dying to try and save Coruscant from the Yuzon Vong. And I think at the time he is like the Emperor's president or elected speaker. And he tries to blow up himself, taking all the Vong with him. And it doesn't work, but he goes out being a hero, kills like 100,000.
That's a cool, be cool
and like,
if they did something
like
that.
They could literally set that thread up if they wanted to. They don't have to. They could just let it drop there, but it was cool.
It would be a fun storyline instead of just this guy that's just a fucking dick to be a dick.
Yeah, exactly. No. He's always been like Leia's antagonist in the Senate post-rebuild, and it's just funny that they have a Mon Mothma Xeno relationship that's similar to that. What's the other note that I have here? that droid, Hey Young,
dude,
fucking loved him.
Love him, absolutely.
He's a really cool droid. He's got a really cool emotional range. You can actually like feel the things that he felt, especially when he was like looking over the edge where he thought Ahsoka was dead and holding the helmet.
Oh,
I'm like,
dude,
oh my
yeah,
God.
I really like that scene.
Oh my God, that droid is like sad. Like you can feel his pain.
Definitely one of the best. Star Wars does a really good job with droids. Anytime they introduce them, like it's rare that I'm like, fuck that droid.
They keep getting better.
Yeah,
keep getting better.
Yeah, and having David Tennant voice him, just like
that was cool. I liked that it was David Tennant. But I mean, even like in Lando, the girl who was voiced, the robot who was voiced by Gwendolyn Christie, she was dope.
Yep.
I liked her a lot.
Rogue One, the K2SO, he's a fucking cool droid.
K2SO went out like a boss, was so good. You know, more recently we've got Mando. We've had a few IG-88 babysitter droids. Like, there's been some goofy droids, but they've been fun and there's been good stuff. So really liked Tae Young. I thought that was cool. He's from Rebels, I assume, as well.
I think he was in Clone Wars because he's from the Jedi. He's like always been with the Jedi. Gotcha. At the Jedi Temple.
I think I hit most of my notes just kind of in the dialogue. I think the other thing that I was going to say, though, is I think the trope of having... I know I had just got done singing the praises of that one senator because he's an antagonist. He's kind of like a throwback to the extended universe. But also the trope of having purposefully ignorant senators that just don't believe anything their top generals are saying is a little played out. I was like, really? If we're doing this again? Your top warriors who have never steered you wrong are now all of a sudden telling you lies. And
especially now of all times. Like, you just got through the Empire. Like, maybe you should look into that.
Yeah. No, we don't trust you. How dare you try to extend our resources? And it's like, really? You don't believe her? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think that's where my comment of like Star Wars is a melodrama at the end of the day.
It is self-inflicted with like it's purposeful, its own roadblocks. Its own roadblocks are the reason Star Wars works. It's like Anakin and Obi-Wan. Anakin can never talk to Obi-Wan about desire and fear because that's not a Jedi way. Really? This whole thing could have been saved by a conversation? Really?
Lots of conversations,
Y'all could have just sat down, had a therapy session like, Obi-Wan, I screwed up. I fell in love with Padme and she's pregnant and I really don't know what to do. And Obi-Wan be like, well, fucking figure it out, dude. Chill out. You don't have to murder the entire galaxy for this. You
have to kill all the kids.
Like, dude. It's like, I don't think it has to happen like this. But yeah, it was good. I'm very happy. I actually think my favorite episode was probably the second to last episode, more than the last episode.
Okay.
When they were setting everything up. But I mean, overall,
that was a fun one.
Oh, also space whales. That was interesting.
When you sent me that text, that wasn't on my bingo card. I was like, yeah, I guess you wouldn't know anything about those fucking things.
Nope, the Purgle were new to me. I did do research to learn that they were pivotal at the end of Rebels. Did not know anything about that.
But I also, I said, I don't think you did, though. You know what I mean? It's just like,
I didn't have a bad time with it. Like, again, in fact, I think the Purgles may have been the first thing I really digested. Was just like, yeah, I can run with this. Not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. I liked it a lot. I like the Purgles.
They're goofy, but it's...
I like the hyperspace tentacles. That was cool.
Yeah, like that's how they... Like, you can just believe there's a creature that can... I like that they tied it to, like, that's how the universe knows how to use that, as they study the whales, and it all has to come from somewhere.
We've had the establishment of, like, multi-galaxies, I think, through a couple of different aspects. Even pre-canon shift, I think they still reference multiple galaxies.
Yeah, the Yujin Vong are from another galaxy.
Right, so they're from a different galaxy. I think that one of there's a storyline somewhere, it actually might be Thrawn related, where they had hidden a fleet of dreadnought cruisers in another galaxy, and the only way he finds it is through the navigation power of Joruus C'baoth. So, like, there's galaxies and stuff, but it's cool to finally see, like, hey, the world is even bigger than people think it is.
Yeah, in canon.
It's
seeing it, too. I think, as good as those old books are, like, there's some... Star Wars is meant to be seen, and I want to see it.
Watching is always going to be over reading. I mean, come on.
Always.
So, like, I have a very vivid imagination, but I still doesn't beat seeing it on the big screen, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So... But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. I think I really liked it. I think it sits pretty high up there. I'm really excited to see what they do next. And I will say it's slightly encouraging me to go back and maybe hit some of the high levels of Rebels, and take it in.
Yeah, what I watched of Rebels, especially when they get into like the Jedi and the lore kind of shit, really good, really fun. So I mean, same with Clone Wars, honestly.
It's good. It's good. I like Ahsoka. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I thought I was on to something, but I fucking lost it. So I feel
it's all good.
The dying of our internet is probably a sign that
I think God's telling us that we've talked too much.
We've reached our point, and I think we've covered at least enough of
I think we have too. I think that the final note is just that Ahsoka, in the grand scheme of things, will just be rated based on what comes next.
Mm-hmm. And we both had a really good time, fun time watching it. I mean,
hell yeah.
What about Star Wars in the past couple of years? Have we like continuously kind of texted each other about like being impressed?
Yeah. Most of the time it's like, this again. But now like this one was like, sweet, I'm down to talk about this.
Yeah. And not critique it the whole time and not say how we would have done it better.
That's actually a good point too. I don't, other than like not being a middle to a beginning and an end, I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. So you're right. It's a criticized, not proof, but it's oh, did I lose you again? Oh, okay.
Nope, I hear you.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm rambling. I'm rambling.
No, you're good. So with that, few things I guess to say before we go out, but this was the very first episode of Nerd Shit in the Dark, the good filler arc episodes. We're planning on do these once a month, so then we're at least try to do one once a month, and then that way, every 2 weeks I'm going to try to get episodes out. So yeah, if you enjoyed this or you want to keep watching or seeing some of the other stuff, follow us on Nerd Shit in the Dark on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We have a YouTube channel. It's Nerd Shit, all one word, entertainment, where I post the podcast and hopefully future videos. We'll see where that goes. What about you, man? You got anything going on? You want to plug at the end here?
No, I'm not a big plugger guy. I'm just here to talk some nerd shit, and I'm just happy to be invited.
Well, I was so glad to have you here because I'm telling you, I've watched our Star Wars special a few times, and you just have a great voice for podcasting. Like it's just I don't know if like my mic just picked your voice up the best in all of that. but it just was so soothing to hear.
Just deep enough where it gets picked up. Do you need me to do like an ASMR walk off for you? And just
no, because I think when I'm just editing this tomorrow, I'm just gonna be like, this is so nice to hear. Like that's my ASMR. I guess the only thing I have to say is the next episode coming up in hopefully 2 more weeks, Braden and I are doing a Halloween special. We're going to watch 4 scary movies for like our main topic, and we're going to talk about those movies. Don't really know.
Have you unveiled the movies?
I think one of the movies we're going to do, like with our Kung Fu Marathon, we did 4 Kung Fu movies, but different kind of genre types. So one of them that we talked about doing was Tucker and Dale versus Evil, where it is horror, but it is funny.
Sure, you got the black horror, I think, or what are the black comedy or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So that's one of them, and then we were gonna do one of the really fucking, I cannot remember for the life of me what the name of the one, like really scary. All I can remember it is the little girl in the movie is fucking ugly. I remember seeing trailers for it. And she was just
Hereditary.
Maybe that's it.
Oh, dude, Hereditary messed me up. So Godspeed.
So that might be one of them. And then
no jump scares.
He
in that
has
movie,
this one that he always talks about that it's about like some sort of ST. I think it's called It Follows. So we might be watching It Follows. That's at least 3 of the 4, and then we'll go
those are wicked. Those are real wicked. Well, not Tucker, but
yeah,
yeah. Hereditary and It Follows are good.
I've never seen either of those.
If you should also try and add in a classic somewhere in there. You should do a classic too. Like add that as a 4th maybe, because it sounds like you're staying much more on like the more recent end. Mm-hmm. You should go back and do like an Exorcist or something and just like talk about all the.
That's a good idea.
The new and the old. I'm just saying, I think it would be cool to hit some of the origins and then hit some of the new stuff that's really good now and really good then.
Yeah, I'd actually really like that idea. I think I will talk to him about that. So
sweet, man.
So all right, that is the podcast. That is the show. And as always, shitters, have a good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shit bugs bite.